Right, I make that 12:30 by my clock. So good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this AVC Wise hosted webinar. Now, it does say on there Pension Awareness Week. Now, technically, that was actually last week, but we did deliver a session or a number of sessions actually last week. And this is due to demand. We put some more on this week. Pension Awareness Week was all about pensions industry reaching out to members, whether in the public sector or the private sector, to try and engage with them around all things to do with pensions. And we thought at AVC Wise, given the fact that around this time of year you all have had receipt of your annual benefit statement, we would run this particular webinar entitled "What Does Your Pension Statement Tell You?" My name's Jonathan Kempson. I'm one of the workplace implementation managers at AVC Wise, and prior to joining them in 2018, I worked for 20 years for the Prudential. And as you know, the Prudential is the chosen AVC provider for North East Scotland Pension Fund. So I've got many years experience dealing with LGPS matters and members, people like your good selves, saving additional sums for their retirement. And what your respective employers have done is that they've introduced the latest version of AVCs, and that's what we call salary sacrifice shared cost AVCs, or shared cost AVCs for short. We will touch on those a bit later, but primarily we want to focus on your annual benefit statement today. So some housekeeping before we go any further. This webinar is factual information only, doesn't constitute financial advice, and everything is based upon our current understanding of taxation, legislation, and scheme rules. What are we actually going to be covering today? Well, as I said, primarily we want to help you understand your local government pension scheme statement. There are lots of boxes. You know, the pension fund statement is a comprehensive, and rightly so, giving you the breakdown of all your numbers and how they've arrived at the grand totals. Now, in many ways, really the only thing which matters are what the grand totals are. There's a lot of detail in there, and as I said, rightly so, but really the key data you want to extract from your annual benefit statement is how much you're going to get, and crucially when. And in many ways, your annual benefit statement is a starting point. It's a starting point for you to realize that these are my hard facts. This is what I've got so far, and this is what I could get out of the scheme, and then to kickstart some thought processes around, well, how am I planning my retirement? You know, am I going to work through to my normal pension age or not? But essentially, there are just some key boxes which you need to look at, and we'll look at those in this session. A lot of us will have a need to increase our retirement benefits, especially if we're thinking of retiring before our normal pension age. Very likely there is a need to do additional planning. Now, if that is the case, what are my options within the local government pension scheme? What options are unique to me? And we'll look at those as well. We'll touch on those options as well. So let's get straight into your annual benefit statement. And I guess the key box, well, the first box I'd be looking at is to understand, well, what have I got under the, a bit like lifting the bonnet on the car, what have I got underneath the bonnet? What provision have I already got in place? And this is the magic number, or the magic date rather, is always the 31st of March each year. So of course the most recent annual benefit statements refer to that date, 31st of March 2021. How much pension have I actually built up? What's my current total pension? And you'll see, in that blue box from your pension statement, they actually do recognise, of course, that they are different sections of the local government pension scheme. All of you are now in this career average revalued earnings scheme, the care pension. I will summarise this in a couple of slides' time on one slide, but all of you are in the care scheme now. And then depending upon when you joined, you may well have benefits within what were known as the formal final salary sections of LGPS in Scotland as well. And what it's doing is it's calculating that and giving you that breakdown. Well, what does it all add up to as at the 31st of March 2021? Now, the key thing to recognise there, that does not mean that all of you, if you wanted to, could have retired on the 31st of March 2021, because remember, under normal health, currently the earliest you can get your hands on a local government pension is actually 55. the latest is 75. And then in between those ages, you will all have your normal pension age, which now, remember, moving forward with the care section, is the higher of 65, or your state pension age. And your state pension age depends upon your date of birth, doesn't it? So my point is, when it says pension as at 31st of March 2021, well, if you weren't 55, you couldn't actually access it at that point anyway. And even if you were over 55, if you were looking to take your pension at that date, that's not necessarily what you'd get, because it assumes that there have been no reductions, when in reality, if an LGPS member is looking to take their benefits before their normal pension age off their own volition, off their own back, there will be reductions, and we'll have a look at that with our case study shortly. So what I'm trying to say is, it's just a temperature check, if you like, a sense check as to, well, that's what I've got under the bonnet. It doesn't mean necessarily I could have even accessed that at that date, and even if I did, it's very likely there'd have been reductions on it, but at least it gives me an idea in terms of how much pension I have built up so far, theoretically. It will then also have that second box in the blue box there, which says current lump sum. Now remember, you only get a lump sum, though, an automatic lump sum, if you have service in one of the former final salary sections of the local government pension scheme. In other words, what we call the 80th years. And we will summarise that in a couple of slides' time, as I say. So if you don't have anything under the final salary scheme, the 80th years, expect a big fat 0 in that box. Yeah, that's if you got an automatic lump sum. Of course, moving forward now, for many years, it's just been about building up more pension. So that's the sort of blue box. So that's the key box. How much have I got so far, with all those caveats I've just mentioned? And then, of course, you move on to the green box, and then it says, well, okay, well, what would happen if I carried on doing what I'm doing at the moment all the way through to my normal pension age? And that might be for you 66, 67 plus. Again, it will give you that breakdown between the final salary section and the career average section. So it will give you your total pension at normal pension age, and, if relevant, any lump sum. But just remember, of course, it assumes you just carry on doing the current hours you're doing now, and it assumes that your pay doesn't change between now and that normal pension age. So what that means is that for any of you, or any a number of years away from your normal pension age, you're going to take that projected pension number with a pinch of salt, because, of course, the hope and expectation over a reasonable period of time is that your pay will go up, if nothing else, from cost of living, and numbers of you will obviously change roles, maybe take on a role with more responsibility, hence more pay. So you'd expect that number to change over time, the further away you are from it. Of course, the converse is true. If you're relatively close to retirement, then pay tends to be normally fairly static at that stage. Even those of you looking to cut your hours in the run down to retirement, because all of you are now in this career average scheme, that may well not have that big an impact on your actual end pension at the end of the day. So it's going to be more accurate the closer you are to your normal pension age, is my point. But remember, it's on current pay. Yeah. So those are the sort of, I guess, the sort of two key boxes I would be looking at. And that's going to help me kickstart my thoughts. Once I understand those numbers, then what I've got to do is start thinking about, well, okay, whatever those numbers are, is that enough? Is that enough for what I want to do one day? And crucially, do I actually want to work through to my normal pension age, my state pension age, to get those numbers? And that's where your annual benefit statement, as I said, is a bit like firing a starter gun in terms of your thought processes around your retirement. Now, there's lots of detail in an annual benefit statement here, and this is just a small extract from it, and there's a lot more detail on your annual benefit statement. And it will give you all this breakdown, okay, and all comprehensive notes about normal pension age and when can I get my pension. Now, a lot of this, the data there is almost telling you how we got to those total numbers, basically. So it's giving you the breakdown, as I said, between this final salary, pension, the care pension, and giving you that clarity, if you like. It's showing you all the bits of the jigsaw which add up to the grand total boxes on the previous slide. Now, whether you need to live and breathe all of this breakdown, well, that's entirely up to you whether you want that detail or not. I guess for a majority of members, they sometimes look at their annual benefit statement and say, "What are all these boxes all about?" And can get a bit confused or dazed by all these endless boxes. In many ways, you don't really need to understand that detail, because the most important thing is what's the grand total, really. But it's certainly there in your statement, and and rightly so. I mean, what they will do is also give you an option to tell you what your maximum tax-free lump sum is. So they'll project through what your normal pension is going to be and any automatic lump sum. There will be an option to also say, well, look, if you want, you can have up to 25% out as tax-free cash. And the annual benefit statement will tell you how much pension you need to get rid of to convert that into the maximum lump sum of 25%. What I would say with that calculation on your annual benefit statement is it only looks at your main scheme in isolation. It does not take into account those of you who've had the wisdom to do an extra pot of money, with the PRU, one of these shared cost AVC pots of money. That is always separate to your annual benefit statement. So, when PRU does get round to sending out paper statements, or you get online access to it, that is not included in the numbers on your annual benefit statement. It is a crucial point there. So a lot of you who do shared cost ABCs, you've really got your head screwed on, because what you're thinking of doing is leveraging your local government pension scheme to actually make sure that your shared cost ABC pot with the PRU fits inside this 25% allowed as tax-free cash. And if your PRU pot fits inside that, well, actually a lot of members will use their prudential pot as tax-free cash, and what that means for them is then they don't have to damage their pension so much by cancelling it in, turning it into tax-free cash. You get the best of both worlds. So lots of detail, lots and lots of boxes on your pension scheme, but the message to you very high level is just look at the grand totals and when, really. And if you want all that detail as to how they got those numbers, that's what all these other boxes are all about. So to summarise the changes in local government pension scheme in Scotland over the years, the bottom line is all of you have been in the career average revalued earnings scheme since the 1st of April 2015. Okay, so it doesn't matter when you joined. All of you from that date have been in the care scheme. How does that work? Well, you earn your salary, whatever that is. 1/49th of that salary is the amount of guaranteed pension you've just built up for your retirement. Okay. Now, as the years go by, you build up so many 49ths. Whatever that banked pension is, they do revalue that by inflation, or CPI, Consumers Price Index. You'll be very glad of that, given what's going on at the moment in the UK, whether lots of people are rushing to go and fill their cars with fuel because they all think they're going to run out of fuel. We've clearly got some inflation heading down the pipes at the moment. And obviously, energy generally, whether that's gas or electricity, wholesale prices seem to be shooting up as well. So it's great that your LGPS pension is index linked. That's why it's such a good scheme to be in. So you'll get to retirement, you'll have so many 49ths index linked, and that gives you your pension at retirement. Remember, normal pension age moving forward with this section is the higher of 65 or your state pension age. Previous membership then, if you've been in the scheme between April 2009 up to the 31st of March 2015, you will also have membership of the former final salary section. And these will what I call the 60th years. So what does that mean? Well, if I'd worked 1 year full-time under that those years, I've built up 1/60th of whatever my final salary is going to be. And the good news is they keep it linked to final salary actually when you retire. That's not frozen when this section of the scheme came to an end. But what is frozen are the number of years and days. So that ran for 6 years, the 60th. So if you were full-time over that period, you've built up 6/60ths of whatever your final salary is going to be. That's going to be your pension. If you were part-time for whatever reason over those years, what they do is they pro-rata down the number of years and days credit they've given you in the scheme, but it's still multiplied by the full-time equivalent salary for your position. And then those of you going a bit further have got membership before April 2009. Well, you'll also in another final salary section, and that's what we call the 80th years. Exactly the same principle applies. If you'd worked 1 year full time, you'd have built up 1/80th of whatever your final salary is. But obviously, if you were part time, they'll pro-rata down the number of years and days, but multiply it by the full-time equivalent salary. So that was about giving you pension. Slightly less generous on the accrual because an 80th is not as generous as a 60th, but, and here's the big but, for those years, you also built up your automatic lump sum. So if you got something in that box on your annual benefit statement for lump sum, then that tells me that you had service under the 80th years. So hopefully that makes sense. So, you've got 2 final salary sections in essence, and then 1 career average section, which you're all in. So that's why they give you all that breakdown there. Right, why don't we, just before we go into about exchanging pension for a tax-free lump sum, what I'm going to do is just switch screens, just see whether we've had any questions in so far. And it looks like we have. Then Janice has asked, how and where do I access my pension statement? Well, you should have your access to your online pension portal. I think on the last slide, I've got the details for that, Janice. If for whatever reason you haven't got access to it, then you need to pick up the phone to North East Scotland Pension Fund and say, where's my access? Because the way forward will be sort of all digital online. Gone are the days of sort of paper. I think you can still request a paper statement, but a lot of pension funds across the UK now are going down this sort of digital route, if you like. You have actually asked another question. I'm in number 1, so that's the career average section. I think you mean by that, Janice, but I only work part-time. Do I still get 1/49th each year? Yes, you do, and that's the difference with the career average thing. They don't pro-rata down anything. It's just 1/49th of whatever your salary is, and obviously, if you're part-time, then your salary is less. So, of course, your 1/49th is going to be less. So, that's how it works under career average. Excellent. Right, that's all understood there. So let's crack on then with the rest of the slides. So when you get to your retirement, whenever that is, as I said, the pension fund will allow you to exchange some of the pension for tax-free cash. It's interesting. The other day we had one of your colleagues said, well, I've actually got an automatic lump sum. Could I give that back to the pension fund to buy extra income? No. Those who've got an automatic lump sum, you have to take it. But actually, they will allow you, though, to boost that lump sum if you want by cancelling some of your pension. And how it works, and you don't worry, you don't even make this decision now. It's only when you get to the point of retirement, because then, all depend upon your personal circumstances, what you're going to do. I think we just want to sort of shine a light on this stuff, because when you do get there, this is the deal to turn pension into cash. You give up £1 of your LGPS pension, and you exchange or commute it, as it's known, into tax-free cash. It's on a 1:12 ratio. Give up £1 of pension, get a quick win on the tax-free cash front, up to a maximum amount allowed as tax-free cash of 25%. Now, the danger which some members might slip into is thinking, cool, that's a good deal, because everyone likes a big number. and you know, a nice big tax-free lump sum at retirement, but you've got to understand that that exchange rate does not represent huge value for money given average life expectancy. So really it all boils down to how long you're going to live in your retirement. Now, if you got to retirement and you weren't in the best of health for whatever reason, or you had an absolute pressing need for a big lump sum, pay off a mortgage or something, I don't know, you're going to be more inclined to go down that route. But you've got to understand what you're giving up. Because that £1 from LGPS is worth its weight in gold, that income is. Why? Because it's guaranteed secure income for life. So it's going to be paid month in, month out, year in, year out. And on top of that, here's the crucial thing for me. It's index linked. So it's not going to stay at £1. It's going to go up by CPI. And I'll tell you what, at the moment, as we start to see inflation run a bit hot at the moment, and we don't know this as a fact, but there are projections where it could be sort of 4% by the end of the year. That's double the Bank of England's base rate target. That's going to start really damaging the value of any of us who've got any cash savings or things like that. Inflation is a bit of a monster. If it gets out of control, it's a silent killer. But I'll tell you what, it's a really good thing that your LGPS income is index linked, because that £1 is going to go up each year by that. So you're going to think very carefully around, well, do I really want to get rid of some of that valuable index linked income just to get a quick win on the tax-free cash? When actually this is where the really savvy members in LGPS say, well, hold on a minute. That's one of the key reasons why I've paid some extra money into one of these shared cost AVC pots with the Pru, because I know when I get to my retirement, whenever that is, I can actually cash everything out at the same time, my Pru pot. And if that value of that Pru pot fits inside the 25% number, I could actually take that back as tax-free cash. So use my Pru pot as cash, then I don't have to damage my pension, or maybe not as much of my pension. And I'll tell you what, if you can pay into a pension pot and get it all back tax-free, you'll be laughing, especially with the amount of tax and national insurance you save with these things. So anyway, that's just something to be aware of when you get to retirement. So let's have a quick look at our case study. So we've got Sarah, normal pension age, assuming her date of birth, we're going to assume it's 67. When she gets there, or her projected income is going to be just over £29,300 odd pounds when she gets there. Let's assume she's got 1 year in the 80th scheme. She's got the full 6 years under the 60th scheme, 6/60th, so she must have been full-time. And then in a forward-looking statement, we assume she gets 18 years under her belt in the career average section. So we're talking, 25 years service in LGPS, ends up on just over £29,300 odd pounds. That means your annual pension then, Sarah, is just over £14,200 odd pounds a year. Plus, you will get a little bit of an automatic lump sum, but it's only £1,100 odd pounds because it's linked to the strength of your 80th pension, and you've only got 1 year in there, so that's why that number is what it is. And if those are the numbers on the annual benefit statement, those are the hard facts. Okay, Sarah, is that enough money for what you want to do? Yeah. If any of you have ever been through a financial advice process with an advisor, they'll want to gather all the hard facts first, how much and when. And then what they're going to do is start asking you questions around, well, tell me about your retirement, Sarah. Paint me a picture. What are you going to do one day when you stop work? You got any hobbies? What are you going to do? You're going to do more of that, less of that? What do you need to run your home? Heat, light your home. You're going to run a car. What do you think that those running costs are going to be? And what you soon start to do is build up a picture of what the income requirements are. On some assumptions, of course, and then work out whether that's enough. Now, of course, at 67, she'll get a state pension as well, depending upon her history of paying NI, might be another £8,000 a year. So when you add it all up, what does that look like? And crucially, though, are you happy to go through to 67 to get those numbers, Sarah? And again, if you ask most, not all of us, but most LGPS members, when do you want to retire? I mean, when I used to go and do these presentations face to face, if I asked an audience, when do you want to retire? we'd always have one or two start looking at their watches and go, oh, 1 hour, all right, have a laugh and a joke about it. But under, that actually it's a really serious question. When do you want to retire, and why? The effect of going early can actually damage the pension quite a bit. We know the numbers at 67. Now, I need to stress these are just Sarah's numbers. Some of you might not have such a harsh landing, but if you want to go 3 years early, Sarah, you could be looking as little as £10,200 odd on the pension. It's a big old hit just to go 36 paydays early. Why? Why is it such a big drop off in terms of the pension? Well, when you early retire off your own back, you've lost out on two fronts. Number one, you've missed out on 3 49ths, and a 49th is quite a big slice of the pension's cake. That's hit one. Hit two, the pension fund will just turn around and say, well, look, we weren't supposed to pay this out until 67, so we want it at 64. We'll pay it out, but we're going to reduce it down. That's what we call actuarial reductions. Of course, then it becomes a keener conversation with Sarah. Well, okay, we're now looking at £10,200 odd again. Again, we're going to run through what you might need for your retirement, what's important to you, etc. Now, of course, you've now got to wait 3 years until your state pension kicks in. So talk to me about that. And this is why the reality is, for a lot of us, we'll probably have a need to do some additional saving for our retirement. What options are there within LGPS to do that? Well, one option is to go directly back to the pension fund and say, look, I want to buy some more income from you guys on top of my normal pension. This is what we call additional pension contributions. A few years ago, you used to be able to do these things called added years. That ship has now sailed. It's there are only existing contracts are still honoured. APCs are the new offering, if you like, just buying income. So you tell them up front how much extra income you want to buy. Maximum is just over £7,000 a year. They'll say that's fine. They'll look at your age, your sex, and over what period you want to pay for this contract. You can technically do it as one big lump sum, but you're going to have to write a whopping check. Most members would spread the cost over their monthly pay. And then they'll give you a price. That price is not negotiable, but if you're a taxpayer, you will get tax relief on that cost, and you fulfill that contract. Then you've bought this guaranteed index-linked income. But a couple of points about the income which you must be aware of with APCs. Point number one, when you die one day, this APC extra income will die with you. It does not, unlike your normal main scheme benefits, have a survivor's benefit built into it. So, your normal main scheme stuff, your other half can get up to 50% of the pension you were enjoying. Not the case with this stuff. It dies with you. Secondly, your employer will not contribute towards the cost of APCs. Unlike your normal main scheme contribution, you pay a core contribution to LGPS, depends where you're on the salary scale as to how much you pay. On average, LGPS employer will pay about 90% of your salary, because buying guaranteed index-linked income, guess what, isn't that cheap these days. So you will shoulder it all on your own. Take the full weight on your shoulders there. You get tax relief on it though. So what you got to do is get your calculator out and then work out, well, how long have I got to live in my retirement before I actually get my money back. Individual calculation for each and every one of you. On average, most members, it's around about 15 odd years plus before you break even. So you're going to think carefully about that. They're not that flexible either, because if you want to stop the contract at any time, you can. That's fine. You'll have bought or prorated whatever guaranteed income you did up to the point you broke the contract, but then you can't just simply restart it the following month. You'd have to start a new contract, and because now you're a bit older, and the slope will be a bit steeper in terms of costings there. So it is an option to buy guaranteed index-linked income. Just be clear as to what the break-even point is and whether that's a price you're prepared to pay or not. If you are going to do additional saving, most members, LGPS members, will go down the PRU route of looking at the shared cost AVC proposition, this extra pot of money. Why? Because if you take it at the same time as your main scheme within the 25% overall limit, take it all as tax-free cash. I mean, you are the only public sector scheme which allow you to do it. No other public sector scheme can do this. And not every LGPS employer, by the way, allows this. It's only because your respective employers have gone down this shared cost route. that you get extra efficiencies when you pay into the pot. Let's be very clear, all AVCs, even non-shared cost AVCs, can within the 25% limit come back as cash. But in terms of the efficiency of paying into it, shared cost AVCs will always trump normal AVCs on the basis you pay tax and NI. They're very flexible because you decide what goes into that account. As little as £2 a month. For some of you, you can go in as high as 60% of your salary a month. You'll be surprised what some members pay into these things as they get close to retirement. Why they do it, why they do it is because they want to retire early, they want some more money. But should I say the benefit of you paying shared cost ABCs is that because it's taken out of your monthly pay packet, if you're a taxpayer, you get tax relief on it, so it's highly tax efficient, and you get national insurance relief on it as well. It's a bit of a no-brainer at the moment, given where interest rates are, especially with inflation headwinds we face. And of course, if you weren't already aware, most of us will have a personal allowance. We're allowed to earn a certain amount of income before we start paying income tax. That's £12,570 is the standard personal allowance. Did you know that that's now been frozen for the next 5 years? So what that means for each and every one of you, and for me, is that if any of us get any type of pay award, pay rise, we will be paying more income tax. Fact, over the next 5 years. And then, of course, what we've seen recently, if you're watching the news, the government are looking to obviously bring in an extra hike in national insurance as well. So how do you protect yourself from these headwinds? Well, it's quite simple. You put some of your hard-earned money into a shared cost ABC because you'll get relief on both fronts. £100 a month if you're a basic rate taxpayer will actually cost you £68.12. That's brilliant, because to turn £68 into 100, you need to find someone who's going to give you an effective yield immediately of over 46% on your money. HMRC does this for you, and if you could potentially take that £100 back tax-free, why wouldn't you? Yeah, okay, that money is tied up until you retire, so you're not going to pump any money into this which you need access to before then. But, if you're not that far for retirement, you might only be locking it up for a relatively short period of time. So hence, that's why you tend to get some members close to retirement that go particularly heavy on shared cost ABCs, even if that means living off a savings account, snoozing away somewhere else, because you have to do it through your monthly payslip. And of course, if you're interested in these things, there's lots of tools on the AVC Wise website. That we do have a calculator on our Knowledge Hub. How close you are to retirement or whatever level of income tax you pay, you can play around with this calculator. Make sure, obviously, you're clicking the Scottish income tax tab, because obviously, your income tax calculation is even more complicated in Scotland than it is in England and Wales, with an extra potential layer of income tax in there. This thing will work it all out for you. So just punch in your salary, punch in your tax coding off your payslip, and then whatever you might want to put into it, which you can vary each month, by the way, is that flexible, but it will tell you the gross cost and the net cost. And then you can put in a timeline as to potentially how long that money might be invested with the Pru, and see what that pot could potentially grow to. We do assume, or the calculator assumes, 3% growth a year after any prudential annual management charges, because they're invested in funds, and there are charges for those funds. We think that's a reasonable rate of growth, unless you're in something like Pru Cash Fund, where you're not going to get 3%. But for most members, it's a fairly realistic forecast as to what the pot might be worth. Other resources, we do lots of webinars on these things. You're more than welcome to join us on any of those. Just mentioned the calculator. We do have some bite-sized videos and an FAQ section as well if you log into your AVC Wise account. Further information. So if I'm after more information on my main scheme, you've got a encyclopedic sort of detail, and it's a cracking website, pensions.gov.scot/local government. That'll give you everything you need to know about your main local government pension scheme, how it works, how the calculations are done. But of course, what that won't do is tell you about your own individual numbers and all the rest of it, because that's what you get from your annual benefit statement through your pensions portal. So always remember that the pension fund rely on your employer sending accurate and timely data to them to produce your annual benefit statement. And certainly if it's neither of those, neither timely or inaccurate, then your pension statement's going to be fairly useless in that sense. So I always say to members, double check the numbers on there. And if they don't seem right for whatever reason, that's up to you to pick up the phone and talk to North East Scotland Pension Fund and say, look, I disagree with this, and can you double check this for me, please? Yeah. So where do I go next? So if you're interested in things like shared cost AVCs, that's why you'd be talking to AVC Wise, because we work with your employers to promote shared cost AVCs. We provide a digital platform where you do your application and ongoing contribution levels. You do that all through the AVC Wise platform. Different ways you can talk to AVC Wise. There's email, there's live chat, telephone help desk, there's a knowledge hub calculator and the FAQ section as well. It's all there, lots and lots of help. If you're after querying or trying to get online access to your annual benefit statement, that's the sort of link that you need there. So it's obviously North East Scotland Pension Fund.pensiondetails.co.uk, and you should all have an online profile. If you don't, you might need to register for that, or if you've got any difficulties with that, just pick up the phone to North East Scotland Pension Fund. But that's your pension portal. And then of course we've got the generic website about high level, how does it all work in LGPS in Scotland. That's there for you as well. So I hope that gives you some different avenues to go down to answer any questions you've got. Talking of questions, it looks like we've had quite a few in here, so I haven't had a chance to look at these because obviously I've been too busy talking away. So let's get to those now. Right. First one, Indy's asked, how do you know when you started your pension and not lost or forgotten bits and years? Well, I'd like to think that your employer would have actually, as I said, they have to tell pension funds when members start, so there will be a record for you automatically. And then if not that you probably had, but you kept every single pay slip, you'd seen all those months where you'd have seen an LGPS deduction to prove that you were actually a member of the scheme. So double check, phone up the pension fund. What's the first record you've got for me? And I don't know whether you ever kept all your pay slips, Indy. Probably not. You could always challenge that, if that was the case. Then you've gone on to mention if you worked under another name or temporary work and cannot remember whether I was paid or not. Yeah, I mean, it's a difficult one. If you, all I can say is that when you've worked in LGPS, then you should have been automatically a member of the local government pension fund, and you should have paid a deduction off a pay slip. So as I said, you just need to go back to the pension fund and say, what's the first record of me actually being an active member of LGPS. Then you've gone on to say, dies with me. Not very good, is it? Well, if you think, let's talk about death. It's one of the only two inevitabilities in life, isn't it? The other one being taxes, of course. Your main local government pension scheme doesn't necessarily die with you, unless obviously you are a single person at retirement, because built into the main scheme is the provision that after you die, your other half will get up to 50% of the pension you were enjoying. When it comes to AVC pots, well, if you die before you get to retirement, that typically goes back as a tax-free lump sum. Make sure you've got an up-to-date nomination form completed with North East Scotland Pension Fund, because that covers off what's called your death in service payment, 3 times salary. It also covers off what they do with an AVC pot. Of course, when you got to retirement, it's more likely you got to retirement, and then if you took the AVC out as tax-free cash, then you had the money. So when you die in retirement, it depends how you took that money out. You could have used it to buy income, of course, the AVC, but most members will take it as cash. And then you go on to say, I took out an ABC just before 55 years. So if I took out an ABC just before 55 years until 67, what does that mean exactly? Say on £100 a month. Well, what you want to do is have a play around with the AVC Wise Calculator. So £100 a month, well, that's £1,200 a year, assuming 0% growth. So if you had 1,000, so even on, and you did that, what, for 12 years? So on 0% growth, your pot would be £14,400. Now, then it depends how strong your main local government pension scheme is. If you took it at the same time, it's very likely you could probably take that back as tax-free cash, but it does depend how strong your local government pension scheme is, because that defines the 25% number. So, I would say to members, if you can take it as tax-free cash, that's the most efficient way to do it. Because if you're looking to buy income with £14,400, you might be very disappointed as to how much or how little that would buy you. Right, let's get some more questions. This is all good stuff. Janice has asked, does Sarah's case study mean that she will pay tax on that? Yeah. I mean, the reality is, you're quite right, Janice. The reality is, when you get to retirement, it doesn't mean that you suddenly give up paying tax, because it depends what your level of income is in retirement. Remember, you got your personal allowance, £12,570, and if your income from all sources was more than that, then you're going to be paying some tax. Now, in reality, in Sarah's case, well, she is going to be a taxpayer, and then on top of that, she's got her state pension as well. So most of us will be basic rate taxpayers in our retirement. You then go on to say, Janice, I have to do a self-assessment tax return every year. Would I need to input the shared cost ABC into the self-assessment, as that is what's putting me off joining up at the moment? Well, the answer is you don't need to put it in there, because it's all done through the payroll system. It would be a different kettle of fish potentially if you were paying into a personal pension, and certainly if your income from all sources took you into a higher rate of tax, you would have to put that onto self-assessment. But with this stuff, because it's done through your payroll, you don't. It's all sorted out. So don't worry about it. Okay. Lorraine's asked, and he's a good question, and this one is quite a popular one, or a regular one, Lorraine. Is there a minimum time you can pay into the AVC pot? The answer is no. Well, of course, other than you've got to be on the payroll. So you could do 1 month if you wanted, Lorraine. Lastminute.com. I think I've seen one for 1 month. The light bulb moment came on. How much tax and national insurance can I save just in 1 month? Because what is often the case is that you get some members who are say, well, I'm in my early 60s or whatever. I've left it too late, so I'm not going to bother. I've missed the boat. Absolute nonsense. If you think about it, each month, if you did £100, and if your basic rate only cost you 68, well, £1,000 would only cost you £680. So even if I did it for 1 month, I've saved over if I was doing the higher amount, just under £320 in tax. 1 month. So if I was just a matter of months away from retirement, if I could afford to do it, I want to whack in as much as I can. If that means I've got to live off my savings account going backwards, I could still save thousands in tax with this stuff. I mean, that's the beauty of this vehicle, and you leverage your LGPS pension scheme, and then within limits, you get it all back as tax-free cash. It's like printing money from the taxman for your own pocket. Okay, Lorraine's you've then also gone on to ask, is the AVC better option than a personal pension? Well, factually, I'm not giving any individual advice because I'm not allowed to do that, Lorraine. But I would always say the difference between something like a shared cost ABC and a personal pension, remember, a shared cost ABC, you will get not only tax relief, if you pay national insurance, you'll get national insurance relief as well. So if you wanted to put £100 into the pot and you were basic rate, it's only going to cost you just over £68 to do it. If you wanted to pay into a totally separate personal pension, which is absolutely your prerogative to do that, you'll only get tax relief on that. And if you're a basic rate, £100 will cost you 80. So what would you prefer? Something which only costs you 68 or something which will cost you 80? Also, with the shared cost ABC and a normal ABC, you can then throw it in the mix with your main scheme and potentially take it all back as tax-free cash. You won't be able to do that with a personal pension. It is a totally separate pot out there in the ether, which on its own cannot be taken 100% out as tax-free cash. So for me, when I look at that, I mean, the advantage of a personal pension is I'd have a greater range of fund choices. I might be able to even potentially get cheaper funds out there in the fund universe. But clearly the NI relief and the ability to take it all back as tax-free cash is going to trump it for me, and I prefer my in-house option. Okay, Indy's mentioned, okay, you mentioned on every 100 it's costing 68 and all the rest of it 42 increase. How is that if I sacrifice £60 and only see £59 deducted and £1 is on the council? How does that fit with £100 example, please? So, yeah, so obviously if you do a lower amount, it's all sort of pro-rated down accordingly. So remember, when you do it, your contribution is always a token £1, by the way, and £59 would be the salary sacrifice, because it comes across an employer contribution, even though you've sacrificed it off your pay, because that's how the national insurance savings are made. Off the top of my head, Indy, I don't know what that the net number is on that. What I would say is if you go onto the calculator and punch that in with your salary details and put in 60, it'll tell you exactly what the net amount is. But very crudely, I think, and as I said, don't hold me to this because I haven't got access to the calculator right in front of me at the moment, but you know, it's going to be something in the region of about £41 probably, something like that, I reckon, something of that order. Okay, Gary's asked, and this is all good, all these questions. Gary's asked, I hear people speaking about unit linked and with profits AVCs. Can you explain something about that? Yeah, sure, Gary. If you go down that route, it is a pot of money with a PRU, and there are different funds you can invest in. Always go with your gut reaction in terms of the level of risk you feel comfortable with. So the lowest form of risk would be the cash fund, but you're going to get naffle growth on that. But you're still going to save your tax and NI. Now, if you want to go take a little bit more risk within a cash fund, then you're hoping for more growth, but there's no guarantees of that. You can get back less than what you put in. But sort of low to medium risk sits the PRU's flagship fund, which is their sort of with profits fund. Now, that is different from any other fund you can invest in because it's firstly what we call a multi-asset fund. So what I mean by that is that in this giant fund, the underlying assets are over 80 odd billion, to give you an idea of how big it is. But some of it will be in stock market, which is high risk. Some of it will be in corporate bonds or gilts loans to the government. And some of it will be spread around the world and some of it in the UK. So it's a real blend of different types of investment. But more than that, the return is smoothed by the PRU. So, you know, it might have a good year, but they're not going to pay out the full benefit to the member. They're going to hold some back in the kitty. So if things dip down again, they can still pay out a bonus each year and give you a smooth return. So a lot of members historically have got into with profits because it's trying to do better than a cash deposit fund, but without the relative volatility of other funds there. If you look at the growth on PRU with profits, you know, you historically have been looking about perhaps in some years 5% yield on top of that, and people have been quite happy to have a sort of a good consistent fund as opposed to other types of funds. I mean, you could put it all into the UK stock market, for example. Now, of course, you'd have been on a bit of a roller coaster because obviously March 2020, when COVID happened, it all fell off a cliff, didn't it? It went down, you know, best part of 30 odd percent. Then it's sort of come back up. We're not still quite back up to pre-COVID levels at the moment because there's some worries going on with Brexit and now inflation, and it's all quite complicated stuff. But if you go into stock markets, you're hoping for the biggest gain, which over the last decade, he'd have doubled your money in the stock market, but it's also going to be the most volatile and the ups and downs. Or maybe you're going to go into something rather than UK markets, you could go into global equities, which have actually, generally speaking, bounced back quite well after COVID. Global equities have, but a lot of that's been doing with lots of these governments doing lots of stimulus and pumping crazy money in America. That's why the American stock market's off the charts at the moment, but quite expensive to buy in at this point in time. So what when you normally talk to financial advisors, they'll always preach about the importance of diversification. So if you're going to invest in markets, then spread your money over different areas, because as sure as eggs are eggs, one thing will go up, another will go down. And again, that's why the appeal is in things like multi-asset funds, something like with profits. Now, I'm not saying, I'm not recommending that you should go into that, but I'm just trying to say that ticks a lot of boxes for a lot of people in terms of diversification. So yeah, and then you've gone on to say, Gary, okay, so the shared cost ABC option is a different option from these options. No, the shared cost ABC is the pot. Okay, so that is the pot, and then within that pot, you decide which fund or funds you want to invest in with the PRU. Yeah, so the shared cost ABC gives you the pot, which gets the tax relief and the national insurance relief, and then with that £100 or whatever you're doing, or £60, whatever the amount is, you tell the PRU or you tell AVC Wise on the application, well, I want to put all of that in with profits, or no, I want to put £30 in that and £30 in cash. Yeah, so you decide basically, and then. Delene has asked, can you join if you're drawing pension through flexible retirement? Oh, cracking question there, Delena. Simple answer is yes. Now, just be careful with this one, because if you've taken flexible retirement, you've either taken all or some of your main local government pension scheme already, you've come back, and so long as you're an active member of the scheme second time round, Delena, yes, you could do a shared cost ABC. However, just be careful, because remember, if you've already taken your previous LGPS, if you're starting afresh again and you're working part-time now, reduced grade, you're not leveraging a huge amount of pension second time round, are you? Or maybe it might even be third time around. So if you're the type of person, because I've seen someone come back after flexible retirement and said, oh, I can take it all back tax-free. I'm going to pile loads of money into my shared cost ABC, save shed loads of tax and NI and get it all out tax-free. Remember, if that was your strategy, you can only get 25% out tax-free. You're only leveraging much smaller pensions second or third time round. So you've got to be mindful. Don't get too carried away with your contributions, is what I'm trying to say. But the simple answer is, yes, you can. Okay. Right. Well, and then you've asked, Lorraine, you've asked, what's the maximum amount you can pay in? You have to leave enough in the tank each month to satisfy the national minimum living wage requirements. So you can't get rid of everything. There is actually on the AVC Wise portal a maximum contribution calculator. So do have a look on the AVC Wise website. If you can't find it or you get stuck, pick up the phone and chat to AVC Wise, and we can tell you a bespoke number in your case. And as you said, the beauty is you can always decrease and increase really easy. It's that flexible. One last question for Indy. Re-competition. I promised my colleague I would ask for her, do I have to start investing now, and only after X months you get your name in the lucky draw? No, you don't have to start investing now for the competition. It's literally just to register on the website. So no, you don't have to open a shared cost AVC. It's just that you've registered on the account. Because look, I know from huge experience that a lot of us don't make quick knee-jerk decisions on these things. We like to think about things, but sometimes we think about things a bit too much. Probably one of the world's worst procrastinators. But by the same token, I think when it comes to pensions, you need to absorb, think about that, reflect upon that. But then ultimately, yeah, you do need to take action. But yeah, for your competition, for your colleague, Indy, yeah, don't worry, you don't have to sign away your life just to get in on the competition. Right, I think that's about it on the questions. So it only remains for me to say, thanks very much for that. Really good session, actually, because there weren't that many of you on this one, but it's great that you've actually asked a lot more questions than some of our other sessions with, treble the number of people on. So hopefully that means that you've got something out of the session, even if it's like, I'm going to look at that annual benefit statement a bit more and start scrutinizing those numbers and think about, well, do I want to work until my state pension age? What could I do to try and tweak things a bit? Really leverage my local government pension scheme, and these little tax tips. I did this for many years at the Pru, and I've helped literally thousands of people over the years. Just be a bit more efficient, and if you've got a bit extra money behind you, then you that's going to make you feel good when you get to your retirement, and that's what it's all about. So if we can be of any further assistance, AVC Wise, you know where to find us, and only remains to be say, yeah, thanks very much for this session. Really enjoyed it, and take care. Cheers.